We are recording. Go for it.
Okay.
Recording? Well, hello, Annalise. It's so nice to see you and DR, and I'm so glad that we were able to get together and talk about artificial intelligence. The three of us were participating in writing a book about artificial intelligence with some other people last year, but a lot of things have changed, and I talked to both Annalise and DR about a lot of different changes before. And I know DR had some specific questions too, which I think would be great to talk about, but also just like have a general conversation. What is it that we felt change, and what are the things that we have seen in the past year when it comes to AI? So what I have seen is that there's a lot more of it for sure. There's AI everywhere. I feel like wherever we go. I don't know what you guys experienced.
For me, here in my country, they don't educate us on AI. They just ram it down our throats. The problem I'm having is with banking. They want us to do banking online, but they are not spending what it takes to protect our information.
Mm.
And they are forcing us. For example, I went to the bank the other day, and if I'm going to go inside the bank to withdraw money, there's a $500 fee to withdraw my money. But if I use the card, then there's no fee. And I'm thinking about the elderly. A lot of older folks here, we have no knowledge of AI or how to work it. And they don't provide that kind of information here where they educate us on the changes. Instead, they ram it down our throats. So going to the bank, if you're going to walk into the bank, you have to pay to withdraw your own money. But if you use a card, then you don't pay. And the elderly would rather go into the bank and withdraw their money. Half of them don't know how to use a card.
Of course. Of course.
So that's the problem I am having with AI. But it has its good and bad side. I just don't like how my country is representing it here because they're not spending the right amount to protect my information, and that scares me. So I really try avoid doing banking online here,
Mm-hmm.
because
That's something we don't take into account is how AI is being implemented in various countries, whether they be first or third world. How is that implemented and how's it affecting the people? We're not taking that into account.
no, because hundreds of thousands of jobs are lost here and it doesn't make the news.
Mm-hmm.
It is done under the cover where a lot of people lost their jobs. And a lot of businesses are closing where they are using less people since they want AI. And nobody's saying anything here.
Well,
I have seen about the jobs. I wrote about this in the book, but I have seen a lot of advertisements that they are asking writers and also different scientists. I'm not sure if you have seen that they are too. They are asking us to teach AI how to do certain things. But most of those jobs are temporary. They are saying you're going to train AI for 12 weeks and then that's it. And then by that time, AI learn your job and your specification, and you don't have a job anymore, but AI does. So from that perspective, I think that's very difficult for the job market. On the other hand, it might create other jobs. Because we might not be able to do one type of job, but it might create another type of job because AI cannot do everything. I think we could use it as a resource if it used well. The question is, are people going to use it well? I don't know.
well, history
What
proves
you thinking?
that we never do anything well. The internet has great, but we
Yeah.
obviously don't use it the way it was, the way the inventors, and I wasn't one of the inventors, but I was one of the people that was brought in to discuss privacy. It was not used the way that we originally thought it was going to be used. And computers the same way.
Mhm.
I've been involved with computers since 65, and I can tell you that computers have just changed dramatically, obviously, since then, more to accommodate humans than not. Um, but everything is the problem is there's not a one size fits all. You can't deploy AI.
Yeah.
Okay, it works in Jamaica, it works in France, it works in Mozambique, it works in China, it works you can't do that. It just doesn't work that way.
It
And
don't work here.
neither did computers. Computers didn't work that way. The internet certainly didn't work that way. I mean, there were, gosh, hundreds of countries that were still not involved in computers when America was fully involved in computers. So it's just there's all
Yeah.
lag, but this issue of taking jobs away and that I think on a grand scale, you might say that there's humans that are using AI and humans that are not. And those that are have,
Mhm.
have a responsibility, and those that aren't also have a responsibility, and that is to bring themselves up to speed. My gosh, how long has it taken for people to finally get the idea that computers are going to be here? People, I'm be 79 this week, and I can tell you there are people my age that still don't know how to turn a computer on. Are you kidding me? Seriously? They will
Yeah.
not interact with computers. So when something comes along that threatens their work or threatens what they're doing, they would just rather shift the blame and say, well, it's all based on computers. Well, what about your responsibility to learn something associated with it? Now, the problem is in a third world country, you don't have those opportunities. You don't have the opportunities to learn AI the way that you might in another country. And that's a problem that I hadn't thought of, but man, I can see where it's an enormous problem.
Okay. More than half the people in my country cannot afford the service. When I buy a computer
Yeah.
in New York, I pay 300 US dollars, $400. Here, it's sometimes four times that. So most
Oh,
people
wow.
cannot afford it. It cannot be afforded here. You cannot afford to pay for the internet, and you cannot afford to buy a computer. And it's the same in the schools. You have to buy the computer to teach your children because it's not in the infant schools here. It's not in the primary schools. In the high schools, some of it is there, but it's not easily accessible for children to get it just like that. And the condition of the world now, children has to grow with that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And in third world country, that kind of knowledge you have to pay for. A lot of people here can hardly find food.
Yeah,
The first
Yeah.
instinct is to feed themselves
yeah.
and their children. So what's going to happen to us who can't afford it?
Do you think it's primarily because of corruption in the government that these prices are jacked up so high that people can't afford them?
They don't care here. They don't really care about the people here. Everybody wants for themselves. And they don't think long term. The world is changing, and the only option we have, we change with it or we die. There's no in between for us.
What's the total population of Jamaica?
The last I heard, it's over 3 million.
Over 3 million.
Over 3 million. And poverty it's worse here. The cost of living, oh gosh, it's unbelievable. So food is the main thing for a lot of people here. Education is not even on the list. It's just to live and to eat.
All right,
Survival.
let me show you what really bugs the crap out of me. You take somebody like Jay-Z, who's a multi-billionaire, who could go to 3 million people and in an instant reduce the cost of computers and food and major things in there just by literally subsidizing it. Literally, it could happen that quick, but yet it never does. And then,
You know
just around the country. It's not just Jay-Z. It's and if you think I'm just picking on it, ethnic, ethnic, whatever, because he's black is not it. It's anyone who has a lot of money who stands up and says, we need to change this and change that, and then these buggers
can't.
do it.
No, no, no. It can't go that way. My country is a poor country.
Yeah.
If people comes in here and start giving away free stuff, a lot of businesses has to close. It doesn't run like that.
No, it
It
doesn't.
doesn't work that way
Nope.
because Cuba has an eye care project where they'll come in and they'll assist us with whatever we need. They'll do it for free. They cannot do that because a lot of people who has businesses that provide glasses, nobody will buy from them. So these businesses is going to have to close. So
Right.
the free that everybody can do, it has its good side and it has its bad side.
Yeah, I'm not
We'd
saying
love to do that.
free. I'm not saying it ought to be free. No, but there's a way to enter the supply system that it can be done. I've done it in countries. I did it in Vietnam when we brought products into Vietnam. I did it in the Philippines when we brought products into the Philippines. So there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. But the problem is people aren't getting involved that need to get involved that can make the change.
Yes, yes. Here, these politicians, they can make a difference, but here it's everybody for himself and all for God.
Yeah.
And it is sad because children are suffering here. Whenever I travel, I
I,
bought
I
in COVID, I bought computers, I give away tablets. But if all of us with unity, we can achieve more.
Yes, of course. You always can. Always can.
And the need is there, but the people is not.
I think the education is a key part, what you said, Annalise, and the supply is another key part, what you said, DR. I think the education and how to use something is essential. I talked to my mom multiple times about this in Hungary because she had difficulty. She has a computer, but like the government implement rules, but then they don't say for the people how to access it. She had problems to access what she needed on a computer because the setting it up was so difficult. And then the setup language was a different language, not Hungarian, not English. It was a
Wow.
totally different language that she couldn't read or understand. So how you set up a program that when the language is not even translated to the language that you can understand, it's many times even difficult to understand when it's translated into the language you understand. And then can you imagine it's in a different language and you try to figure out how to use this government program? So yeah, education is a key, and then the supply is a key. And when it comes to AI, I think that was an important point that it is in our life. We have to change, we have to adopt to use it. But many times people just don't have access to it even. So what happens to those people who have absolutely no access?
Well,
I don't know.
I think, Annalise, thank you, by the way, for virtually slapping me in the face. I appreciate that. Uh, I think that I've been looking at this, I don't want to say esoterically, but I've been looking at this from the wrong end of the spyglass, if you will. I've been looking at it from such a broad perspective as opposed to mankind and not drilling down into those areas where it's completely different, where it's applied completely differently, if at all, if at all. And I
Yeah.
think that we're not asking the right questions then of AI. If AI is in this wonderful tool, and for my business, Tiny Tales, it's been a real boon. We've been able to accomplish a great deal with it, and people love what we're doing with it. But when you get out into the world, where I spent most of my career, I don't know why I wasn't thinking about this, but we're not asking the right questions of AI, like how to solve some of these problems in the world based on this large amount of knowledge that we have access to. We're not doing that. And nobody
Yeah.
seems to care. You know, I spent a lot of time in Africa, and there's a saying in Africa, nobody cares about Africa. Nobody cares what goes on. That is so prevalent when you walk through Africa. Everybody tells you that, particularly if you're white. No, you guys don't care. You don't care what happens here. And that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. And it's obviously, and at least in Jamaica, it's right there in your face.
Yeah,
And
but
you're one of
that's
the
okay.
privileged
That's
people get to go back and forth between New York and Jamaica, and you see it even more.
but for me, I don't blame anyone. I blame me first. Then I
Sure.
fix my problem. And here, you have to want it.
Mhm.
Poverty is everywhere. You have to don't want poverty.
Yeah,
Poverty is a personal issue, just like the changes that's going on in our world. It's personal. You have to want to change it. So
right.
I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying for me, I make myself computer literate. If I have a problem, I call my son. He said, Mom, do this, do that. Because I had a little issue yesterday where I'm stopped getting emails and I need to delete everything from Google and turn off Google backup. I called my son. He said, Mom, do this. Now I learn. I have to. I don't have a choice.
Yeah,
And everybody need to think that the world is changing. You have to
Yeah.
adapt.
yeah.
Either you adapt or you die. That's what is
Yeah.
here in my culture. You adapt or you die. There's no in between.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's no other way around this because the government is changing things here and they are implementing it without your knowledge and your awareness. You get up one morning, you go out, you see the changes, you either learn or you die. And that's what we face. And for me, it makes me stronger. It makes me better
Mm-hmm.
because I want to survive. And when I survive, I can help you. I can help somebody else. So AI should be a personal thing for you to change because it doesn't matter what we do. They are going to change everything. Whether we like it or not, it's not our option because we are not asked.
Mm-hmm.
You go out there and
Yeah,
you are
that's true.
to this because there's no way around it.
Mm-hmm.
Find a way to get in. And that's what my country does. We don't have a choice. They don't give us choices here. You either adapt or you die. That's it.
And that's not a slogan, that's a reality.
That's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's life.
And it's growing everywhere around the world.
Well, as writers, what can we do about it?
We can share our experience.
Write about it.
Yeah, by sharing our
Share.
experience. Show our side. Like I could show my side of the world, what's happened here. Probably everybody in your country or around the world will realize you have to be educated. You have to be aware.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to be alert of the changes that is going on, else you're gonna be left behind. And oh God, everything seems so crazy now.
You know, it's crazy when we were young people, and none of us are young anymore, but when we were young people, and our parents used to say, "Oh, things are changing so badly. It's going to hell in a handbasket. Everything is changing. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad." And we used to say, "What the hell are you talking about? It's great. It's great. We enjoy this." And now we're at this age and we're saying to ourselves the same thing. Everything's going to hell in a handbasket. It's problematic. And it's it's a cycle. It is. It's like the life.
Each generation, I think, have that because for the
I,
youngsters now they are growing up in this, so it's fine for them, but we have to learn and adapt, and it's harder the older we get.
but you know what the difference is the youngsters don't care. They don't care. There's no sense of continuity about, well, what about the people coming behind me? Who cares? They're not me. I don't care about them. Whereas
But
our generation and previous generations, we had a sense of purpose and a sense of overall destiny in the sense that we need to do this to protect this. We need to do this for the next generation. We need to do this to help this group. And I don't see that happening now. And AI is making that worse.
I
Well,
mean, I do believe that there are people who care out there. But I also think that the young generation gets lost in what's happening. I
that's what
see
I'm gonna
like a lot
say.
of young people standing up for the environment, for example, because they all see the environment is a problem. Like if we don't do something about climate change, what's going to happen to them and their children? Um, so maybe the cause change too. I see people standing up for food because we all have the microplastic and all kinds of things in the food. But I think going back to AI, I think you said a great point. Why don't we ask AI how to fix some of the problems
Mm-hmm.
that we have? And I don't know if anybody done.
Oh,
I don't use AI much, so I haven't done it. But I think that's a great point.
well, I'm going.
Okay,
Maybe we should ask those questions and see if we can help
Yeah.
better by using
one of
AI.
one of the major issues I have in my country is I'll go to the hardware store to buy a product. AI
Mm-hmm.
is down, everything stops. The cashiers, they don't know how to add to do anything. They don't know the price of the stuff. Everything is relied on the computer. And I've been in several stores where I go shopping. They are using the computer. The system is down. Everybody has to wait. Business stop. They are losing money. Shouldn't they educate these cashiers or whoever in charge that, you know what, when the system down, go back to the old one until the system comes back? Do you know how many businesses are losing money here now?
Yeah.
When the system stopped working, and the system here is unreliable because I am paying for internet services, and sometime at night when I can't sleep and I get up, there's no service, but I'm paying
Oh,
for it.
wow.
Wow.
And a lot of these business, I have been inside bookstores where I had to walk out because I'm not standing in line and wait until the system comes back up, and they have no backup system for the stuff. That's another problem we have here. And these young people, their focus is only about AI. They don't know anything outside of AI. And I think they should have knowledge of both. The elderly have knowledge. I have knowledge of both.
Mm-hmm.
But their brain is just AI. They can't function without AI. You think AI is here to last forever?
What, AI is
I
going to
don't know.
last forever? I,
That's what I'm asking.
people said the same thing about computers and about the internet, and I remember when I was a kid, people talking about telephones and well, this is not going to be this way forever. Well, some days I'd like to
Mhm.
go back to two tin cans and a string because it's become so bad. But it's just, I don't know, in some version or another, it's going to last. It's just a question of whether or not people like you and I, you collectively and I, want to take the time to help make those changes.
Dia, you said when we talked earlier that you have done a lot of research about AI and how it's been changing in
Yeah.
this past year. Do you want to share some of your findings, what you have found in your
Well,
research?
here's what I was looking for. I don't know if you guys remember the article that I wrote in November of 2023 when I said that AI will become top of mind in 2024.
Oh, God.
And
I remember that's why we started the whole book project and
that's
everything,
that's why we started the book project. That's why we started the AI versus HI initiative on Medium. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
our original intent was the fact that we wanted to get AI off of Medium so the real authors could actually make money again because the amount of
Yeah.
articles that they're putting out versus us is they're getting paid for that, and that's taking from the money that we as real authors used to make. So it's changed dramatically. How much has it changed? Well, in a recent article on Medium, they said that 46% of articles all written on Medium, as high as 46%, were all AI.
What? I thought they stopped.
Mm, no.
Wow.
Wow.
So when you look at it like that, then at 46%, you wonder why your income's gone down by more than half. There's the answer. Because they only have so much money to spread around. That's it. If they're a finite system, even if you've got 23 million subscribers at $5 a piece, it still only generates so much money per month. Divided by 23 million writers,
Oh
yeah,
God.
it goes down pretty quickly. And then when the bulk of those, or not the bulk, but nearly the bulk of them become AI, then what does that do to your revenue? So my revenue with AI, one of the reasons with AI, with Medium in the past year has gone from being $20, $30. I never expected to be very much. I think the highest I ever earned was like $120 because I had an article that Gabriella boosted. But other than that, it was just a
Interesting.
small
Yeah.
amount of money and I was doing it as a hobby. But now my income is less than 50 cents per month.
Oh my God.
So when you consider the fact that, as I said, I'm going to be 79 and I have exactly 21 years left because I plan to live be 100 plus one day.
Good
So
for you.
I have just that finite amount of time left. And do I want to spend it on a resource where I'm going to get just so little back? And
Yeah.
the next question is, who's really reading it? Well, the number of claps. I remember when we could get claps of, I got claps that were like 700, 800 on an article. You're lucky if you get 50 or 100 on an article. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. And the quality should have been changing because I should be a better writer now than I was in 2021 when I first started
Yeah.
out loud. So it's just it's gotten to a point where you have to say, what am I really doing here? Even though it's fun, it's a hobby, and I do that, I could just as easily write a book and get nothing for the book as write on Medium. And proof of that is in Tiny Tales, we've written 17 books. And when Rick Allen, my co-author, co-founder, said, how much do you think we're going to make on books? And I went like this. He said, why would we write them? I said, because if people come to Tiny Tales and they want to know who these people are that founded it, they were going to want to know if we're authors. Then we
Okay.
are.
Okay.
Anyway,
Wow.
so AI is it's changed, but I really believe, and I go back to the implementation of computers and internet. When computers came along, people said, "Well, there goes my job." And other people said, well, we're not going to be using as much paper as we used to use. Well, hell, I should have bought stock in paper because we use more than we ever did. Then, in terms of computers, it actually created jobs. Well, I don't see that happening with AI, but what I do see happening with AI is what you said. If you don't take the time to learn AI, learn at least some basics associated with AI, and it's not that complicated. If you don't take the time to do it, then you're not going to understand it, and you're not going to understand how to place yourself in a world that's changing.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think it's how it's presented here, because how it's presented with a lot of fear and a lot of hopelessness.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people is not really interested in
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
And aware that everywhere they turn, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And without that knowledge, it's going to cost you.
Yeah. Exactly.
So how it's presented, it should present it. The presentation is, I guess it's how the message is delivered. And if the message is delivered better, then it would have more effectiveness. More people would want to learn. More people would be interested. And it probably would work for us.
But then you also have to ask yourself, how do you present that message? With so few people reading, is it an oral message? Is it a visual message? Do we do short videos and say
Now,
you're wrong about
I
AI?
think that's a good question.
You're wrong about this or you're wrong about that. Have you considered this? Let me show you. Let me show you a simple way. Now, just to give you an idea,
Hmm.
I've done a lot of work with AI on storytelling because I thought, man, it's going to replace me. What's it really take? So you ask AI just to write a story about kindness, and it comes back with some stupid story about kindness, and there's no heart to it at all. There's no nothing. So I sit down and knowing how to prompt for AI, I sit down and wrote a prompt for AI. AI gave me a 100 word story. I gave it almost 500 words to give me back a real 100 word story. And it did. But it took me 500 words to do it.
Ouch.
See my point? So who's the real writer here?
Yeah,
Still the writer. The prompter
you
is
are.
still the writer. Yeah. All it did was just maybe put the commas where the commas need to go and link the story better than I might have because the human mind tends to wander a bit. So it
Mhm.
put it in a more progressive order and something like that. But the point is that it's it's uh, it's not as simple as what people think it is, and most of what uh, most of what's there is simple. It's not as simple as what people think it is, but yet it is simple. It's really simple. Um, so I don't know. I maybe well, I wouldn't be opposed to generating 5 minute videos that says, "Welcome to AI. This is a simple version of AI. Let me show you some simple thing that it does. Very simple."
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea because I think many people don't know. You showed me how you can input things into ChatGPT to have an outcome, and you helped me
Mhm.
with some things a little bit. And I was curious, actually. So I, like, for example, signed up for LinkedIn Premium for a month to try it. And if you look for a job on that, you can push the AI button and it looks at the resume and sees what you might be missing. And it asks you, do you have this skill? Do you want to add this skill? And then you can quickly figure out, is that something that you qualified for or not? So I think like uses like that are great, you know? But Warren is not here. I wish he would have been here today because he said to me before that AI will never be able to take over human creativity. So no matter what, we can always write, we can always create, we can always come up with things. Um, so yeah, it's just I think it's going to be interesting. It's a little scary too what AI can do to me.
You know,
Um,
I've
but it's
I've
also interesting.
I've just produced a document that I'm going to be putting on LinkedIn, and I'm going to share this with you right now. This is the handout piece that I'm going to give out as a result of. Let me get the crud out of the way of what I'm trying to view here. Okay, so I think we can all agree that AI is the elephant in the room, without a doubt. And at
Yes.
work, 30 to 40% of tasks across occupations are automatable. That's true.
Mhm.
When we started manufacturing cars, we recognized that right away that many of those tasks could be automated. And that's where robots came in.
Wow.
Jobs at risk, repetitive, low skill roles, data entry, call centers, all of that can be replaced. So, what do you do with that? Jobs redefined, knowledge workers with AI co-pilots. Now, that's the first time I've ever seen that term, AI co-pilots. But what is an AI co-pilot? Well, in the example of the story that I gave you, I was the co-pilot, wasn't I? I sat down and said, no, this is what you need to be doing. I was the navigator. I said, here's what you should be thinking about, and here's what people need to understand. And then AI was able to rephrase it in the terms that I gave it. So then the reality is you won't lose to AI, you'll lose to another human using AI. And that's where the race comes in. We did that with computers big time. Oh my gosh, companies that were utilizing computers versus those that weren't were growing exponentially. People that understand computers versus those that don't grow exponentially. Now, I'm old enough to remember when calculators were introduced. In fact, the guy who's not on this call that should be on this call is Gary Friedman. Gary Friedman, at
Yeah.
age 14, wrote the definitive work on how to program a calculator at age 14. Smart guy. And the original calculators, I was speaking with one of the early designers at Hewlett Packard, and he said to me when we first came out with the calculator, I sold him some of the parts for the inside of the calculator. When we first came out with it, he said they were not floating point; they were just dollars and cents. That's it. And then somebody came in and said, "Well, why can't we go out a couple decimal places at least? You might want to round it off." So that's what they did. The next version of the calculator went out a couple decimal points. Then finally, some smart engineer came in and said, wait a minute, why didn't we add a floating point? Holy cow, changed the world. Now we have floating point calculators. But it took 3 iterations for us to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a thing that if we don't start being the co-pilot, if we don't start trying to understand this at some level, it's you've read that book Haves and Have-Nots. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be those people who have some knowledge about AI and those people who don't. And those people that do are going to walk all over those people that don't.
Oh, yes.
Big,
Oh, yeah.
big time.
Mm-hmm.
And then at home, I love this. AI tutors, digital butlers, elder care monitors are rising. Parenting, AI can teach, but not love or discipline. You can use AI to present a piece of knowledge, but you can't use it to teach empathy. It'll never teach empathy, period. And empathy is one of the key character traits, the top 10 character traits, if you're going to be a decent human being. If you don't have empathy, I really don't want to be around you. You're not my kind of person,
Yeah.
right?
AI can't teach what it doesn't know. That's the problem.
It can't teach.
Yeah.
Well, there used to be a saying with computers when people were talking about, well, why can't I get to the bottom of the page? It's because cursors can't go where they haven't been.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. I like that.
Right? And so
Yeah.
if you want it to go to the bottom of the page, keep hitting enter and it'll eventually get there.
Mm-hmm.
So the CIC lens, choice, integrity, and trust. Characters defines how AI serves you. That's important. That's an important consideration. And then integrity, be transparent when AI shapes your work. That's something that we're not seeing at all. Nobody wants to let somebody else know AI helped shape what they do.
Yeah.
And then finally, credibility. Trust follows to responsible AI users. Boy, that is absolutely true. When you're up front and you say, look, AI helped me do this, and here's how I did it. And here's what I input. I mean, it's almost like when we were kids and we were learning to do advanced math, and the teacher would say, show me your work. Why? I got the answer. No, show me your work. I want to know what you got there. You got it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today it's the same way. And in terms of credibility, we're going to need to show people how we got there. Yes, I used AI and I used this AI and this AI, and I took these two and compared them, and then I researched the articles that it referenced, And I found those articles online and I verified that that data that was given to me is correct. Now that's an appropriate use. But to just put it out there and say, well, according to so-and-so magazine, this is what happened. Really? How do you know that? Is that a hallucination or is that true? So divide isn't human versus AI. It's humans who adapt versus humans who don't. And
Yep.
the test will be, will AI sharpen your impact or hollow your relevance?
Mm.
Well, big words, but it means essentially, are you going to be relevant? Are you going to be somebody that matters? Or are you going to just let this hollow you out? How many people do we know who become alcoholics who just couldn't cope? And so rather than trying to learn to cope, they just chose alcohol because that could just make them hollow when they didn't have to think.
Oh gosh. No, that's why it sounds so painful.
Yeah.
Because it's forcing us, some of us, to make life choices we didn't plan for. But that's the world.
But think about all the things that have impacted us over our lives, Annalise. We're all old enough to remember things that have impacted us in ways that we never planned for. Um,
True.
as a young man coming out of high school, I planned to go to college. I had 3 scholarships for football. I wound up going to Vietnam. I didn't plan for that. That's just the
True.
way it worked out. But what did I do? Now resilience kicks in. What did I do as a result of that? How did I take that knowledge that I gained from a war and apply it in a way that could benefit me and benefit those that I care about? That was the big challenge. And a lot of guys came back from Vietnam. You see them on streets everywhere. Vietnam veterans just lining the
Yeah.
streets as homeless people. And a
Yeah,
lot
they are.
of people because they can't handle the changes that are being made. And let me tell you this, one of the things I wrote a paper early on in Medium, which didn't receive much results, but it's absolutely true. It's the thing called the Peter Principle. Are you familiar with the Peter Principle?
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of it? The Peter Principle is the fact that everybody rises to their own level of not understanding anything. You just get to a certain point where you've outlived your usefulness. You can't figure out how to get to the next level. That's an easier way to say it. You
God,
can't
I hope
figure out how. And I've watched great CEOs, guys that I had a lot of respect for, just literally promote somebody that did a great job doing this, but as soon as they promoted them, they failed. So what did they do? They fired him. That was their reward, as opposed to taking that person back and saying, what you need is some AI training. What you need is this. What you need is that. So I'm not going to be able to give you your full raise, but I will give you something that acknowledges that you did a great job. We're going to put you back in a place where you can continue to learn. And then when you're ready again, we'll look at you promoting you again. Now that was the approach I took. But most people's answer was, oh, well, they didn't make it, so they're out. Well,
ouch.
that's the point of rising to your own incompetentness. And that's what the Peter Principle is. And you just become incompetent. And it's not through your own fault. It's sometimes just education or lack of experience or whatever. And so few people are willing to settle back and say, wait a minute, let me show you how to get to that next level.
You see, that's what my culture is. You only have one choice.
Yeah, you said that.
One choice. One choice here. You only have one. We don't have the resources to give you two. And I'm thinking that should make us better. But not all of us is aware that, your mistakes can end everything.
Oh,
But for me, and I brainwash my sons in believing that you only have one choice. When you get it, work it, make the best of it, and then maybe more will come.
Mm-hmm.
That AI is scaring us here, and it's hindering us too, because the government wants to move ahead and a lot of people don't. And it's creating a lot of issues here,
Exactly.
especially in the banking sector, and because they are putting land titles digital. They're turning land titles digital. They're
Mm.
going digital in places where people don't understand. And personally, for me, oh, someone can go in their system and change whatever information on my land title and say the house is theirs. How am I going to prove that it's not true if I don't have it on paper?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Does
exactly.
that make sense?
I was in a conference all week this week, and one of the things that I went to was an AI conference, and the young man that taught it has been 20 years in this business. 20 years. He began with large language models 20 years ago. And he said something that kind of shook me to my core. He said, people are wondering what AI is doing financially. He said, let me give you one example that bothers me. This guy's from Colorado, which is to say, may as well be from Oregon because they all hug trees, right? Trees are important.
Mhm.
So he said, if you saw the amount of money that's being spent on greenhouse gases and on all of that, that we've the amount of conservative conservation that we used to do versus what we're doing now, he says it would shock you because all those funds from all those government agencies and everything is all being diverted to one place, AI.
Ouch.
Ouch. So all of the
Yeah.
stuff that we've been fighting for years about trying to get people to understand what the greenhouse gas effect and how it's going to affect our world, now all those programs are dying because the government, who primarily funded most of those things, is now diverting those funds directly to the implementation of AI.
But if there's no world to live in, what use does AI have?
Good point. I'm with you 100%. 100%.
It doesn't
The,
make any sense to me.
I am telling you, it is so hot here. The farmers are complaining. Everything is drying up.
Mm-hmm.
Everything out there is drying up, and that skyrocket the cost of food because it is so hot.
Yeah.
Here, the trees in my country are fruit trees, and they are cutting down trees like it's nothing, building high-rise apartment where the water issues that we have, water cannot go up to the third floor, and they are building apartments up to 8 floors. If all of this is destroyed, AI has no value.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So if they don't protect the earth, then what use does AI have?
Nothing.
These are all good questions, but unfortunately, they're way above our pay grades. And I'm going to just tell you that there's some huge issues here. And I think that as individuals, the only thing that we can do is decide how are we going to help the average person as writers. That's our responsibility, is to help people understand. So, what are we going to do to help the average person understand their place in a world full of AI? What are we going to do?
Hmm.
We can write about it, but I think I think it's also important what you said earlier. What if we ask this question to AI? What if we ask
Oh, I intend
AI
to.
a question
I'll
to
be,
how to help humanity and how to help the environment to survive better, and
yeah,
I
how
think
AI can help humanity to make our globe better?
I
yeah,
think
And let's see what it says.
I'll ask them too. I
yeah,
will.
yeah,
Without Earth,
yeah,
AI can't move.
that's right. You know, the interesting thing is, from my perspective with AI, is that it's like thinking has always been. You get tunnel vision. You think this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, and finally you move slightly to the right or left, and you go, oh wait, there's a whole nother area over here that I hadn't been thinking of. And once we get ourselves into that mindset, which we've just done in this conversation. Now I'm asking the question, why can't we use AI to solve the problems in Jamaica? Why can't we use the AI to solve the problems on
Yeah,
how to get people to understand AI? What's AI doing to help people understand AI? Probably nothing,
exactly. I love it.
because
I love it.
nobody cares.
So,
And the people who are really smart in AI, they're probably thinking, "Ah, the rest of these people, who cares about them? I just care about how quick and how good I'm getting with AI. What do I care about whether somebody else understands it?" And I think that elitist attitude is also what is helping to separate us into that haves and have not category that we talked about earlier.
We also need an understanding of AI too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because a lot of people doesn't
absolutely.
understand it.
They don't. They don't. Well, unfortunately, when you
So I think it would
continue
be
to
great
use AI
if
as opposed to explaining large language model, language model does a much better job of explaining what artificial intelligence does. Because it's like, if you've ever run a database, the more information you have in a database, the more you can search on, the more you can come up with a different answer. And large language models, depending on which one you're talking about, and OpenAI seems to be the largest, depending on which one you're talking about, has a certain set of information that they've captured. And so they're using that to search and that to get answers back to you. And people think, well, what's that relate to AI? So they don't understand. That's a disconnect. That's a huge disconnect. I see you looking at the time, Annalise.
Yeah.
I have guests coming.
So I have to cook.
I think
You have
it
to
would be
cook.
great. I
Yeah.
think it would be great as we come to the close to the hour in a minute. It would be great that when we post this video, then under the video, both on Substack, Medium, and YouTube, and wherever we post it, we also add the AI's answers to these questions that we raised. How can AI help the environment? How can AI help other humans understand what AI does? And then we can write, if we send that to each other, we can add those
Okay.
elements. And it would be kind of interesting to say what AI says about AI.
Yeah.
I'll ask GPT chat and Gemini and see what they say.
Okay.
Yeah,
Chat.
okay.
I'll do it as well. Okay. All right, ladies. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.